Welcome to the Bizarre Briefing. This is the April 2019 edition. I'm Bryce Castillo, joined as always with Brandt Hughes.
Wow.
David Rowan.
That's me.
That's you, and John Rael.
That's me.
That's me, yeah.
This is the behind the scenes podcast of all the great stuff we do here at Bizarre Magic, from videos to storefront to social media, woodworking for sure, absolutely, construction, comedy, a little bit of drama, a lot of love. That's right, and a whole lot of love,
and a lot of time now that it's our fourth year.
That's right.
To it.
This is our fourth year of doing the Bizarre Briefing.
Wow.
This is also our first time celebrating an anniversary episode, I believe.
Well, you know, everybody's got to get the 4-year in. That's the big milestone.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
That classic
guys.
Paper
number 48.
Paper clips, and then there's binder clips.
That's right.
And then the fourth one is diamonds.
Okay.
Right?
Great.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll be
please-
expecting those next week,
Yeah,
Bryce.
Please send in. For me?
Yep.
Ah, damn it.
As the producer, it's your responsibility.
I was almost going to put it on the audience. Okay, well, we'll see about diamonds.
Doesn't seem like 4 years to me. Does it seem like 4 years to you, John?
No.
Yeah,
it seems
No,
like-
it just
those
flew by.
4 years really flew by for you, John.
Flew by.
Yeah.
Congratulations, guys.
I mean, we
Yeah.
did start with John.
we did it.
We did start with the
We
John.
did
That's
it.
true. That's right.
Full circle.
Full circle. That's right.
Question, in case anybody knows,
Sure.
how many days would it take people to catch up on the Bizarre Briefing?
Quite a bit.
I mean,
Like if they're brand new.
So
19?
I mean, if you knocked out one a day, which you easily could do because they're usually an hour and a half to 2 hours long,
Mm-hmm.
then that would be a month and a
48.
half. Yeah, 48 episodes.
48 episodes?
This is give or take. Yeah.
Okay, so like
Yeah.
3 solid
Yeah.
days with no sleep.
I think
and
we
they would
missed-
get through this.
I think we missed 1 month.
No.
Did we miss?
No,
Oh yeah, no,
Some
that's
of
right
them
because
are
we've
like
taken
2.5 hours.
December's off.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or January. We
Like-
have taken
like
some
this
time
one.
off, but
Huh.
I do think if you listen to one a day, it would be about a month and a half.
Yeah.
Which is
Wow.
understandable, I think.
All right.
So there we
So
go.
catch up,
our
you folks.
legacy.
Our legacy. This show hasn't really changed much at all in the 4 years that we've been doing it. I guess we're more comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I feel like we have fewer months where there are giant revelations
Yes.
that happen live on the show. It still happens.
We had one last month
Yeah.
with Annalisa,
Yeah.
our
Oh, yeah.
the intern, who we have like now seen a lot of, and she's great.
Yep.
It's like immediately after doing that recording. But yeah, not as many revelations, which is either a good thing or a very bad thing.
I would say it's a good thing. I feel like we've gotten better at communication since then, because
Yeah.
there was a lot of times where we would sit down to do the podcast and then John would be like, yeah, so, you know, Brian's just going to be like in Indonesia for like 3 weeks. And we'd be like, what?
What? Yeah.
So there's less of that.
There is. I think there is. And
Well, then there might
it's-
also be some correlation with the fact that Brian has made a commitment to like stay home for a while.
Sure. He's talked about this on the other shows before, but he's kind of being the stay-at-home dad while Bonnie's working on her art career and stuff. And so he's spending more time with the kids, and so he's not traveling. I was gonna say he's not traveling as he isn't traveling as much as he used to, or as like I was gonna say as spontaneously as he used to, but that's also not quite.
Sure.
But travel is not it rarely takes priority. How about that? He's trying. It seems to be falling in places where we can move stuff around easier instead of me going out to a high school with him and then having to also have a deadline on that same day. You know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I would be interested in going back to one of the old episodes of this show and seeing what the energy and the vibe is on that.
I just remember some of the early ones had like a really tight close up on my face.
Oh, right, because we were doing. I think you had the solo cam early on when the studio was before we had rearranged the studio and everyone was kind of circling the desk over there, and it won't be too many more episodes before we're not in this studio space. I think.
Right.
I mean, you say that.
Knocking on wood.
Okay, I mean, I feel like giving us 2 or 3 months is a pretty reasonable time frame.
We'll see.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
so I guess that's true. But
There's the optimists and the realists.
We're gonna be over there by Christmas, right?
Yeah.
I was told by the time I got here.
Yeah.
well, that's I was not part of that conversation. that was optimistic.
Like, you'll see this studio, but you probably won't see much of it because we're going to be somewhere different.
I mean, construction running long.
What?
What?
A light went out in the warehouse like a month ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And Brian stops by and I'm like, the light's out. Do you know where we could find like a big old ladder? And he's like, dude, we're going to be out of here in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, because I stopped by the studio the other day.
Still out, right?
It was still out.
Yeah. Probably both of them now, I think. Like the other one went out too.
Well, I no.
We
it
just
was
work in the dark there now. It's
really
very
'cause,
odd.
part of the lighting there is some of the soft boxes that we use for shooting stuff. You
Right.
actually have set up in the current warehouse space.
It makes me feel like I'm on camera.
It is.
Yeah.
It is a really nice soft light.
Yeah, it really they really do
Yeah.
illuminate like that fan with the lights. I don't know how
It's
people were
a-
trying to
they're
work in
bad.
that.
It's a small overhead. It's like a residential overhead light on like a ceiling fan.
40 feet up in the
But
air.
it's like 20 feet up, so it's not effective at all.
And also, the two lights on that fan are different color temperatures.
different
color
so it
temperatures
just
'cause-
makes you feel
I
weird
hate
and
that,
gross.
yeah, it's all. Hey, home decorating tip: the light on your ceiling fan fucking sucks. Don't ever use it. Go and get some real lights.
Go get some soft boxes.
Go get
everyone.
or just get
Put them in your living room.
Literally
Do it
in
right.
the lights. Yeah.
No joke. I have two spotlights pointing up to my ceiling because I
Sure.
never use the fan light. It's gross.
Yeah. Because it's just don't get me started on fan lights. Okay. Anyway, this is the 4th anniversary. See, this is a conversation I think we still would have had 4 years ago. I think that
True.
I think the core of the show is solid
We talked about food more back then, though.
Well, I've changed a lot
True.
since then. So
because I think we got it all out of our systems. We were like, okay,
Yeah.
we know what our food things are.
Yeah.
There has to be some other small talk we can make.
Tacos.
Tacos are good.
Okay.
Yeah.
That Torchy's, man, I'm over there all the time.
So yeah, there's a Torchy's nearby. It is good. It's just it's a little expensive.
for the record, I thought
Sure.
Torchy's was like an Austin thing. Apparently, they're everywhere.
They're spreading. It's a spreading franchise. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like
Because
totally
I never saw them
nationwide.
in L.A.
Yeah, it's probably not out.
I think they didn't they start here and then they kind of expanded out.
Possibly. That
Yeah.
sounds.
I would believe it.
Yeah, that sounds
I
plausible.
wouldn't pull out my phone and Google it.
course,
I'd
I
just
gotta-
go,
I
yeah,
gotta
they
say,
probably started.
franchises.
Right. Yeah.
Franchises in general have gotten really crafty. Like when I moved out here,
Mhm.
I started seeing like some what I thought in LA were like these cool, unique like barbershop or something. Like, oh, that's my place, that's my guy. And then
The
I get out here,
Floyds?
it's like, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh,
Great clips.
It's just
Yeah.
a franchise.
Just like a really good local place.
Great
I
clips.
love it.
Nice.
I mean, great is in the name. Yeah, no, Floyd's definitely is trying to do that, like, it's a real authentic, music guy vibe.
Yeah,
But they're like everywhere.
I'm a sucker. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So that's a little Austin talk on this 4th
Yeah.
anniversary. I don't think we would have had much Austin talk 4 years ago.
True.
I think local
Well, the
stuff.
city wasn't here back then.
There was no Austin 4
Yeah.
years ago. This was still
Yeah.
New Texas.
I didn't live in Austin when we started this podcast.
Right? No, you were living in San Marcos.
Yeah.
That's right. And I was just living on the other edge of Austin at the time. Yeah. So
Wow.
time flies, man.
Mm.
Time flies. All right. Well, we got a little bit of the HQ update in that talk, but apparently over the weekend they were supposed to build the steel structure that would be the new warehouse.
Yeah, Monday. They were supposed to erect it Monday.
And then they were supposed to do it on Monday, and it's still not up. I think it's a rain issue would be my guess. It kind of rained a little last week. It rained a little bit today and some yesterday, and it's going to be rainy this week. So
I just wish they would call Brian and be like, okay, here's the date and time, because otherwise I got to keep checking there every morning to set up the time lapse camera.
sure, yeah. So one thing is that we kind of want to have a time lapse of it being built, and if we don't know when it's going to be, then I'm sure it's eating up some of John's time to go out and swap batteries, because we don't have a camera that can run on AC power and also do all that stuff. I was
Yeah.
gonna say you should take one of the AC powers here, but with the podcasts.
But the GH2 does not do time lapse.
Oh, okay.
See, that Venn diagram is very fucking small.
Okay. Well, other HQ stuff. I don't think the septic system has been installed. That happened since the foundation. I don't think was even up last month.
Maybe
Maybe it was.
I think so.
But now there's a big concrete slab, which we'll talk about in just a second. And the septic system is installed like right next to it. They went and laid out a lot of piping down the property. They cleared out one weird plot of land for some sort of piping. I guess it's an outlet for the septic system or something.
Yeah, it looks like a little soccer field or something.
Yeah, they cleared it out, and now the grass has started to regrow over there, and now it's just this little like nook, kind of near where the bus is.
Ah, yes.
Yeah,
The bus that may or may not leave.
right, correct. Now, I don't think there's been an update on that.
Or may or may not have people, because sometimes it's locked and sometimes it's not.
Or may or may not be there.
Ooh.
Schrodinger's
There was
bus.
The bus is a lie.
That bus was gone 40 years ago. I don't imagine I said that one right. Okay.
I do have an answer for Miss or Mr. Eureka Geek. How will new warehouse and studio location affect your commutes?
This is
Or
from
is
Eureka.
Brian also building condos for the team?
Way to add some life into it.
And for me, kind of the reason I got assigned the time lapse is I live like 1 exact mile away, pretty much. Like I'm the closest person to it. I don't know how far away you guys are. Well, I know how far away some of you are, but
Yeah,
I'm-
I'm pretty close.
Pretty
Yep.
close as well.
Brandt and David are pretty close.
But I'll be far away probably in a month. So,
Oh, you.
Mm.
Ooh.
oh yeah, he
moving.
doesn't like his
Wow.
apartment.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right.
I don't know where I'm moving to, but I just
Yeah.
assume it's further away.
Well, and you're also like pretty close to that space. Right now,
Oh
the
yeah,
HQ. Yeah.
for sure. But
So anywhere is pretty much going to be some amount of further away, probably.
I don't mind a longer commute. I mean, I'll just put on some audiobooks, learn a new
Yeah.
language. You know,
Yeah, I mean, I'm like,
maybe practice the guitar while I'm driving.
Sure.
I'm
Make some
like
toast.
a 25, 30-minute drive away if there's not too much traffic.
What do you do? Music, podcasts,
It depends on what I'm feeling that day, you know. But
roll
it'll
down
either
the windows.
well, no, not on the highway. That's maybe not fuel efficient.
Okay,
But
like the drag on the car, like losing 3 cents.
that's eventually just the hair. My hair goes wild
yeah.
with
He
the.
takes the car in every weekend for
Right.
those air tests.
Mm-hmm.
Puts it in the wind tunnel.
Really tune it in.
Goes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I probably have I have the longest commute,
Challenge accepted.
except for Annalisa. Annalisa has a long commute
never mind.
also, but she's not on this podcast, so she can't defend herself. But yeah, so I don't. I think for those guys, it's not going to affect it very much. For me, it'll be a little shorter. It's like 5 minutes or so closer to me.
Well, the other thing is like usually you come out at like different times every day.
Right at off rush hour
And off rush
usually.
hour, right? And I know Brian has this idea in his head that one day everybody's just going to be there at the same time and working at the same time. But my guess is that will similarly like transition in,
Yeah, it'll definitely be. I still don't even know what.
such that you can still avoid rush hours. What I'm saying with a long
Right,
commute, yeah.
right. And so I still don't know, and we'll just kind of play that by ear, and see what that looks like. Because
Have you ever tried to play an instrument by ear?
played an instrument by ear? No, I mean I do play a couple instruments, but I don't have like perfect
The
ear,
training
or
and
anything like
thing, yeah.
that.
The
No.
perfect pitch thing is you're so jealous of it when somebody else you can just like
Mm.
take a drill out and go zzz, and they're like, oh, that's F sharp.
Right.
And you're like, you need to just leave because
I wonder how many people who say that they have perfect pitch just lie.
yeah, they just boldly say
Because all you
F
have
sharp.
to do,
They all say F sharp.
all you have to do is say
It's
that
an
you
inside
have
joke.
it. You just say that you have it, and then don't keep a pitch thing on you. Don't keep a little
Oh, the
thing.
little like harmonica thing. Or-
Yeah. Just don't keep one because no one else does.
Yeah.
And so people will believe you.
Mm.
So
Well, I am always impressed by the musicians who they hear something and they can just bust out their guitar
Yeah.
and or piano and just play it.
Yeah, I have a
yeah.
friend Matt who's like that, and it's just disgusting.
Well.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of an HQ update on that. Speaking of the slab, we had a Modern Rogue shoot. Was this last weekend or I guess 2 weekends ago now? Doing a new round of Desperate Defense videos
On the slab, I like that.
Yeah.
On the slab.
Making use of something that you won't be able to use as a setting.
That was our argument.
I suppose so. Brandt, how was that? Because shooting that was a little tricky. It was tricky.
It was agonizing to be there in person because it's
a white slab. It's a white concrete slab.
Yeah,
It's a
just
hot
all
plate.
that sunlight bounces directly up into your eyeballs.
Right.
I likened it to what I assume it's like to go skiing or snowboarding, where you're on the snow and it's just like blindingly bright.
Right.
But I don't know. I live in Texas.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. I've mentioned this, I think, to either Bryce or Brandt. Sorry to mix
It'll
you
be
guys
new
up,
to me.
I mentioned this to somebody that I'm looking into. Drone cameras, like drone viewers. They have these little viewers that can attach to your glasses or to a little headset, and it's just like this. It's right up close to your face, so you could literally like cover your eyes completely and just have the footage plugged into an HDMI directly in the camera, and that way you're just seeing what the camera sees for those super blind, I can't even look at the screen while I'm shooting moments.
Yeah, we use glasses like that on our drone video.
Right. He had some head mount. He had a head mounted display version of who is it that makes it, like Epson or something like that. So like some big company makes it, and yeah, it'll give you like a VR sort of perspective on a drone. And
then there was also just the glasses that had the AR version inside of them.
Yeah, and the analog signal ones. Yeah, those are pretty neat. But yeah, that might be a neat thing. I don't know. It was definitely it definitely seemed like a challenge kind of to shoot, especially because it was also like a very it was a very wide open space for them to play around in. I mean, they were literally on this huge slab of concrete, and I could definitely tell like midway through that they were starting to get kind of loose the way that they do when there's a lot of space, in terms of just like blocking each other or standing behind stuff with in between the camera and stuff. How was that?
So I've only worked on editing the first one of them so far, and it seems fine. It's a tricky balance because with the wide we pushed it super wide, and so it was like the slab was very bright and the sky was a bit darker, so you kind of had to find the right the mid zone on that stuff to accommodate both. But yeah, it was all right. We used some makeshift lens hoods to actually see the footage the day of. I think so. The thing we did differently with this Desperate Defense than previous Desperate Defenses, which I really enjoyed, is instead of rating them 1 to 10 or whatever, we rated them against each other basically. So as the week goes on, we
kind of ranked them.
Yeah, we made a list of which one during this week is better than which other one during this week. And I think that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
So I liked that.
Yeah, that seemed to come across, because I think we had that with some of the Scam Nation videos that we've done already and still have to release of from those days we shot with Diamond Jim and Rex from Whiskey Tribe. This kind of like overarching conceit of like, hey, we're gonna show you these things, Rex, and give them a letter grade,
right?
And it was so loosey-goosey and not a big part of those videos that and they were all at like the very end, so it wasn't a super big deal. But like looking back on it when I'm editing it, I'm just like, well, that's not gonna. I mean, I guess so. I guess that's a way for him to say how much he liked this thing, which is a non-zero, non-zero value add. Just it's weird.
It is weird.
It's not scientific in the way that I'm trying to assign it like a grading system or classification would be, but also whatever, it's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely get Brian's perspective on that, which is it kind of arbitrarily but successfully adds more engagement from people. Like, even though it makes no sense whatsoever.
But on the Scam Nation side, I don't know about Modern Real comments. I've never seen anyone mention the
like
letter.
Actually, not. It shouldn't be an A. It should be a B+.
Right.
Yeah,
like that's
never that.
that doesn't come into play at all.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And also, there's a funny thing where Brian sometimes, and Jason as well, will be like, "Oh, well, if we tell them to tell us in the comments, they'll comment more." And it's like, I've never seen evidence to support that ever, because people are gonna tell you their opinion whether you ask for it or not.
Right.
And the ones that don't comment just don't comment anyway. Like if
Right.
it's like,
Yeah.
how many
And
times have you heard somebody ask you to like and subscribe, and you're like, thank you very much, and next video.
Right.
not only that, I mean, yeah, it's a very weird thing to ask for input or engagement, especially in the form of comments, because I think about, especially when Lens first started on Patreon. If you don't know, if you're a subscriber to a Patreon, they have access to the Snapchat-like feature where they can take videos or photos and you can see them for like 24 hours or something. I remember when we first got it, they didn't have any commenting system at all, but it would definitely be like, "Oh man, we're doing this thing. Give us your input on this thing. Leave it in the comments." And it's like, what comments? You didn't direct anyone anywhere. And we haven't we still haven't. I think we've had conversations about it a few times, but never really landed on like a community spot, right? Like I think really Brian just wants there to be some sort of BBS forum, and and is maybe subconsciously not picking at that thread until the website gets redesigned and has that. But I think there would be a lot of value in saying like, let's push the subreddit, or let's push the Facebook group, or like push people to these specific places so that we can dedicate time and social media energy there, instead of just like, hey, I don't know where you should put that,
Right.
But that's another conversation.
But yeah, Desperate Defense probably coming out this upcoming month sometime.
In May, really?
I don't know.
Okay.
I keep asking Brian, and he's like, just whenever we get the summer rush. And it's like, okay.
Sure. Well, I think that to me, that's just him saying whenever you are able to do it. Like, I don't think he cares one way or the other, because summer will be summer, and you know when summer is. So yeah. So there's but last year you were doing them kind of hand to mouth, right? Where it sounds like you've kind of are going to try to get some of them done ahead of time.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah. It's a real strain to do like 5-10-minute videos per week.
Sure.
And usually I can get like the first 2 or 3 done fine, and then after that you just hit a wall, and it's like, man, I really don't want to do this right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm working on them over weekends, but since this week John's video goes up on Friday, I think I'm just gonna really double down this whole week on getting the rest of those done and getting a bit ahead on that.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that's hopefully you're able to do that, because I know that, I mean, I've been trying to do 2 videos for Scam Nation where I can, and between all the other stuff that I've got, it feels impossible. Especially when like the past 2 weeks we've had these like 20-minute videos, and even if they're simpler, which they're not even really necessarily simpler, it's still like a lot of video to handle.
Yeah.
So thoughts and prayers. Best of luck with that.
Not gonna.
Yeah, okay.
No.
Speaking of thoughts and prayers, we also had an incident over the weekend.
Yes.
John, can you kind of set up the scene on this?
Yeah.
And Jason has talked about this on the Discord, so I feel okay talking about this.
Well, he should feel okay with us talking about it, because it's something that needs to be talked about. We're filming Brian and Jason making arrows, handmade arrows they cut down, branches from a tree fairly straight, and they cut them down, shaved them down, and now they need to make notches like in the back, so they're holding a stick and a knife or some form of blade, and they are, carefully putting force down towards the stick that they are holding and trying to make a notch. And you can see where this is going. Soon we're filming, and soon we see red pouring out of Jason because he really cut his thumb. And we're like, well, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, fuck. And so we all ran in and grabbed the paper towels and the first aid. And as soon as they got the paper towels, Brian's like, you know what? We're just going to go to the hospital because that's the smart thing to do.
Sure.
And so they did.
Yeah.
Spoiler warning, no lost thumb. The thumb is fine.
Yeah.
A couple stitches.
He got like 4 stitches and he's back in business. Yeah, that was probably one of the rougher injuries for those guys.
For sure.
I know we have cut gloves somewhere. They're somewhere.
And even forget cut gloves, any gloves. Gloves, just something, anything. There was nothing.
It's also funny just in that Brian saw the danger earlier in the episode and was like, hey, don't cut towards yourself. And then Brian started cutting towards himself. And then Jason resumed cutting towards himself. And the rest is history.
Why it seems weird that they could just do a video on like proper tool handling safety. That feels both incredibly in character and probably, well, I don't know how much they actually learn from the episodes that we shoot, but it does seem at least worth them trying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always of the mentality, and maybe it's like a big theater background or whatever, but I think it was actually Houdini. Correct me if I'm wrong, somebody in the comments, but it was at least Penn Jillette quoting Houdini, who said something like, "Performing magic should be exactly as dangerous as sitting at home in your living room." And granted, being at home, like shit happens. People lose their thumbs at home, doing their day to day.
Doing magic at home.
But it doesn't mean we shouldn't help the danger,
Sure.
And I see us helping the danger at a lot of turns.
Yeah?
And we just shouldn't.
Well, there we go. It's yeah.
But he's okay.
He's okay.
He's fine.
Yeah, he drove himself home afterwards, and he wanted to go back shooting the next day. He wanted to shoot more videos the next day, which we resoundingly said, maybe you should give that the week to heal up first.
Yeah.
Although it would be kind of funny if we resumed it with the hand cast thing still on.
Yeah. Oh God. So the injury counter has been reset, or will be reset, I guess, whenever that video comes out.
Whenever that comes out.
Yeah. We need to figure out how that works, or how to, if there should be parity between real time and in video canon.
I've put a lot of thought into this, Bryce.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought it up so I could clarify for the people.
Sure.
It would make zero sense to have a real world counter because of how mixed up our publish.
Well, not in
are.
the videos, but also, one thing Annalisa was saying is that she wants to make like a physical injury counter, and if that thing had 2 numbers on it, one for like us, and then one for based on video publish.
That'd be
Sure.
cool.
We would just have to make sure that doesn't actually get in any proper episodes. Because
that's fine.
Then
Whatever.
it would be confusing.
Sure. I mean, yes, but yeah. There we go.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah. All right, we solved it.
I like it.
Another couple of Modern Rogue things. Since the last episode, we had a couple of videos go up, including hiding money in a hotel room and the live South by Southwest video, which I think we just talked about last month. It wasn't up yet.
Right.
John, you did the South by Southwest video, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
That was actually, wait, we had maybe...
You might have been done with it, but I don't think it had published by then.
Oh, maybe it hadn't published. But anyways, I liked it. I have a huge history of filming live things, and the sort of quasi-easy thing about shooting live things is that they kind of are the way that they are. Now, we cheated quite a bit here and there to make it look a little nicer and trim down the fat, but basically you get what we got, and what we got wasn't bad.
Yeah. What did you think about it, Brandt?
Ringing endorsement. It was it was fine. It was like any of our live stuff really. It was probably a little bit more clearly produced than some of our past live stuff. Just thinking in regards of South by So Wasted stuff.
Oh, sure. Previous Night Attack live shows.
Or even just like, a lot of like the concert stuff or whatever, where sometimes we're just like really in the mix of the crowd or whatever.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just because that's what I always remember. And so, yeah, it came together fairly easily from my perspective, because I just kind of helped set up cameras and watched over one of them.
Yeah.
But, you kind of had a little bit more of the running around hectic role in all of that.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about we kind of debriefed on the South by Live event an episode or so ago. But yeah, I think the event as a whole went off really well, and we even kind of talked about why they're on a tarp in the middle of the crowd instead of on stage where they are lit and can be seen by everyone and have audio.
Yeah.
But
I do kind of wish that for like the big, like, hey, it's our first live thing, that there was more like planning. Or
okay,
I mean, I know Jason planned a handful of stuff out, and I know that like the reason, probably a big reason why Brian was like, let's just not worry about any of our plans and let's just do this one thing, is because there was such a tight time crunch, and it's like Modern Rogue was stuffed in the middle, and we really kind of had to.
But also, Modern Rogue still would have only had 10 minutes, whether they planned it or not. I guess, like, because originally the idea, I don't think this is speaking out of turn, was originally they were going to learn how to rap. At one point, the early idea for that segment was that they would learn how to rap from
GIFs.
Lyrically,
yes.
From one of the performers on the lineup, and then at some point that was not the idea. And I had to break the news to that person because apparently no one else did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You mean you had to break the news to the rapper that was going to teach them how to?
Yeah.
Okay.
That their services would not be needed for that, which is fine. He was cool with it. But yeah, it was a little haphazard, but
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I guess it's indicative of the show in that sometimes, they just kind of say, we have a plan, and then the plan isn't working, so we're scrambling. But I feel like, to me, it kind of almost read as, and this is also from the biased perspective of having seen all of the planning and documentation for what was going to happen. But it almost seemed just sort of like
thrown together
miscommunication, in that Jason was like, here's all of these materials and we're going to do this thing. And then Brian just said, we're just going to mix these two things together and here we go.
Yeah. I mean, he says as much on stage.
Yeah.
Because granted, it would have added a couple minutes to go through with the actual plan.
I mean, I guess it would have added a little bit of time, but also it would have been fine.
Yeah. And so it's just it's like the core concept was like, oh, here's this cool little contraption, right. And then just to throw all that out and basically have like a baking soda vinegar reaction of just like it really dropped a lot of what could have made that idea interesting.
Because everybody knows what baking soda and vinegar do together,
right?
Well, and it doesn't feel exactly impressive
or clever or anything. It's just sort of like,
especially if it doesn't do the thing that it's supposed to do.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I just felt like it could have been like, for this big first thing, there could have been a little bit more that went into it.
Yeah. The other video that I mentioned before was hiding spots in hotels, hiding money in hotels. This one, I think we did talk about this after we shot it, but it is I don't know. It was as frantic as you see it in the video of Brian coming in and fucking like turning this place upside down Immediately.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. And yeah, it was interesting because we kind of did that video a bit differently. We didn't really do a cold open.
Right.
So we just kind of had the intro to the video before the title sequence, which I thought worked pretty well.
Yeah, it was a fun sort of immediate thing. Like Brian walks in, he gets the challenge, and then he's off.
Yeah, it kind of just dropped some of the pretense. And then they just kind of went at it, and I had to sort of figure out what that looked like as far as like adding in the timer and the money count and stuff. And then also, there are tons of edits in there, but I had to figure out, okay, which of these edits do I want to actually affect the timer and which ones do I not?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there are like some edits that don't affect the timer because they are cut to appear as though it is simultaneous. Even though it's not necessarily. Now, realistically, it probably would have just cut out half a second or a second or something like that. But I kept the timer running just to sort of maintain the illusion of consistency. And then when it's like a more clear jump in time, then the timer jumps.
Gotcha.
It doesn't happen a super ton, but there is that kind of thing in there.
Yeah.
And then also just like integrating, we shot when Jason was actually hiding everything, but I had to figure out how to integrate that stuff. And so I sort of did like a flashback thing after Brian found each bill.
Right, because it wasn't like a big thing of Jason saying like, here is where I'm going to hide this, and here's where I'm going to hide. It was just kind of him doing it, so we had footage of it.
Yeah, there's no narration or anything, which made it difficult to integrate.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the show is actually just cut to dialogue, and the visuals are there just to support dialogue. But with the flashback stuff, there's not really hardly any dialogue. So I had to kind of figure that out, and mostly it just boiled down to, some sound design to sort of properly integrate those moments.
Were there any bills that got completely forgotten by all of us?
No, I think because they made a point of pointing out the ones that he did not find.
Yeah,
and I kept a list.
Bryce had a list.
That's right, my list.
And there was like one or two bills that we didn't have footage of because Jason started hiding them before we were recording.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
what if he came in there and just sliced open the couch?
I think we had to ahead of time say like, hey, you don't need to destroy anything,
right?
To find any of these things.
You found them all, but you also racked up a hefty bill for us.
Yeah, and for everyone and we did clean up afterwards. I think that made it into like the description of the video or something. I don't think it was.
It was in the title sequence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. There were definitely a few points where I was like looking at Jason, being like, "What the fuck is he doing? This is insane."
Yeah. And we did raise the refrigerator back up.
Yeah.
It did.
Right. In the middle of shooting, we had to put it back up because it was like clanking.
It did not like being on its side.
It did not being face down on. Yeah. So.
And also, a lot of people were thinking that the outlet under the microwave was arcing or something. It wasn't. It was just like there's a light. I think it might be an IR light that flickers. And it was like that before we got there. So.
Boom. For Brandt and John, how was shooting that? Because that was definitely like kind of going, just trying to follow Brian as he was. Because I know like I was doing audio and trying to stay out of everyone's way without just being outside the whole time, and like being in the hallway of this hotel where we did not tell them we were going to be doing this thing.
Sure.
That was probably one of my favorite shoots so far.
Yeah. Just
following around, like. It's like being, on a crazy documentary or something.
It was frustrating at times.
Yeah.
There's a moment where Brian finds a bill under a Kleenex box in the bathroom or whatever.
Oh, and there's no coverage of it because he like...
There's zero coverage because he just runs in and immediately finds it and he's like, and then keeps moving on. And it's like, dude, nobody was in there. Nobody saw anything that you were doing. And so stuff like that could be difficult. It is kind of nice to just have some mobility and move around a bit, but in such tight spaces, especially not knowing what he's going to do next, it was frustrating.
It's definitely some tough. One last Modern Rogue topic here. This was for the sliding over a hood of a car. Is that right, Brandt?
Yeah.
I guess as a part of that video, there were little interstitials of Samson and The Chooch, a fake cop show. And now this video, there's a separate video on scam stuff. Is this just the interstitials, or is there additional stuff in this video?
No, this is pretty much just the same stuff. I just kind of wanted to have it isolated on its own standalone little video. And yeah, it was a fun little thing. We just kind of improvised all of the moments. Yeah. And I think it came together really well. The really interesting thing for me is the theme that we use, the music that we use, by Alex Ball, I want to say, who actually does like really interesting sort of music docs on YouTube. He did one over the music on Terminator 2, which was great.
Oh, interesting.
And I found that track because I was searching YouTube for like 70s cop music or whatever, and there's this great video out there of him playing the track, and he's playing all of the instruments and everything, and it's great. And then we worked out a licensing deal which was more expensive than any of the other music we've ever used on the show.
Really?
Yes.
Oh wow.
And we can only use it for that one video. We can't use it for any other videos.
Are we allowed to ask? Is it polite?
For what?
How much?
How about we do an over under, right? So I looked into some music licensing for Scam Nation. Okay. We use Monster Cat on the videos that don't have ads because they let us use those for free because we pay for a content creator license. And what I was told from them was roughly for videos that have sponsors in them, it costs about $100 per track per video.
Okay. What was your guess?
Well, so I would say, are we thinking, is this maybe a little more above that or below that?
It's pretty much right at that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's exactly that.
Because there have been other places where I've gotten that same quote pretty much.
Yeah. For the record, our upcoming Star Wars video, I have a bunch of sound-alike / just generic background music that also uses some themes from Star Wars being made by a friend of mine. And for the whole thing, it's going to cost $100.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's actually asking him to create new stuff.
Yeah.
And I also have access to all of his other stuff for this video.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Very cool.
But yeah, a lot of the music we use is pretty dirt cheap.
Yeah.
For the most part. Because we deal in bulk. But yeah, that video was really fun to put together. It kind of wasn't working for a little while because I couldn't. It was just like a bunch of scenes that were sort of back to back, and it didn't totally make sense.
Yeah.
And then I started adding the credits,
the on-screen sort of title credits. Yeah.
Yeah, and originally they were just like us. They were just like the real credits of making this video. Yeah. And it just wasn't working. And then once I like pieced together like, oh, just use people from the show and give them goofy, roles or whatever, then it kind of all coalesced and came together. And I like the presentation in this Scam Stuff version where it's like
different parts of the pilot tape.
Yeah, presented as though it's like, oh, we found this footage from this archive, and then we worked on restoring it or whatever, and then presenting it in that sort of narrative is kind of fun.
Yeah. And it has the slide in it too, of course. Because from shooting it.
That had a little bit of working on it because I really loved the perspective from inside the car. But I realized as I was putting it together, I was like, well, as much as I love this perspective, it doesn't really show the slide. And that's kind of the whole point of the entire video. Yeah. So I really have to show the other perspectives, but I don't want to lose this one. So I went with the sort of style of showing it and then rewinding it and then showing the other perspectives. Yeah. which I think worked out pretty well.
Very nice.
Very nice.
David,
What up?
how is it going at Scam Stuff?
It's going. So what do? We did a free shipping deal, which we don't ever do.
That's right.
And,
It's the thing everyone was asking for.
Yep. And I'm wondering, maybe we take this video down
We definitely should.
because
Oh yeah,
it'll just generate people like, hey, I saw this video and I was wondering if I could get in on that free shipping.
Yeah. Have we
or
can
maybe set to private or something.
we'll make it
Yeah.
unlisted or something.
But yes, we did the thing.
How was that? Generally good. Generally.
I think we were a little bit more Brian optimistic about how that was going to go because I guess right. So I guess we thought that just everybody would just show up like Black Friday, and so I think we got somewhere around like 60% of what we were kind of expecting.
Okay.
But I think what we learned is that the idea of having a shipping cost really isn't a big deal to a lot of people, but it is kind of a big deal to a very small minority of people.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the ones that are in that former camp, it's nice to not have to pay the shipping, but they buy stuff off other websites, they pay shipping, and it's in the
They know to expect it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the people who just sort of compare everybody to Amazon at $35 or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, we satisfied those people, and I think the international customers probably made out better than anyone else,
Right.
because they're getting very heavy items shipped over there,
Shipped for free.
and
Yeah.
we'll know tomorrow or the next day whether we, made any money at all from.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, we know what the revenues are, but we just don't know what the profits are yet
Oh,
until
gotcha.
until the end of the month. So I think, I don't know. We might do something like it again. I think the other thing we did is we basically,
There was also a sale attached
right,
to it.
We discounted every item, plus we offered free shipping. So we kind of went all in on, the excitement around it.
Do you think so? I know the thing that I noticed a lot in the comments was people also mentioning that there was there was a cost amount that you had to hit to trigger the free shipping.
Yeah,
Do
but
you think that the sale may have impacted that in some way? Of like, well, it's cheaper to get stuff now, and now maybe this thing I wanted to get, or these two things I want to get, are below that amount. I bet that's probably
maybe for
nominal amount, but
yeah, maybe for someone internationally that wanted to order some very low cost items.
yeah.
Because international, I think, was $129.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if they bought the Houdini cell, that
Sure.
qualifies just by itself.
Yeah.
And there's several other items that they could mix and match two things and still get over that. But if they wanted, a single bump key or one set of lockpicks, and then they wanted it to ship internationally, the problem is like international shipping starts in a padded mailer at like $13-14
Wow.
for something that's very lightweight, on like under 2 ounces. And if
That's
you're-
tough.
if
That's
the
tough to get over. Yeah.
product retail is $15 and we spend $14
Just
on
to get it there.
postage, and then we have the cost of the good itself, you can see how we're losing money if we just offer free international shipping to everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it went fairly well. We learned from it, and we it's something that was new, and and we'll take it from there. I think it might be interesting to have a product that just like a new
a product that has
just
free
ships for
shipping?
free, right?
Oh,
and see how
interesting.
that goes.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's part of like an introduction to a new big product. Is like, instead of making it an
A
introductory
launch price. It's
you
just
go,
launch
it
free
ships
shipping.
for free.
Oh,
anywhere.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
What-
Yeah.
and we may try to do something. I don't know if we're going to involve a shipping cost in it because it's kind of a low cost item. But this next month or the month after, we did a very high end mystery box, but we didn't do a lower end mystery box this
Right.
year.
We just did the Houdini cell.
And so we might try to play around with putting together like a
lighter box.
$120 worth of value in the box for $39 or something. If we can make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, or $100 for $39 or whatever. So that's the first hint of that.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a basic outline for how we might be able to make that happen. So
Nice.
keep an eye out.
Any other products you can tease?
There's some stuff that we're gonna bring back. So in the Rogues line.
Ooh.
Oh,
The Rogues line.
Okay,
Oh.
interesting. Now my mind's lighting up with all the Rogues products that I can think of, and some of them that are often not in stock.
The Rogues Candelabra.
That's right.
Oh.
In the Rogues Observatory.
The Rogues Observatory. The Rogues chair.
Very cool. Well, we'll keep an eye out for those.
Yeah, I think those are pretty obvious, but we're just trying to make sure that we can get. One of them is like we want to reintroduce it as the exact same product that it was before,
Yeah.
because that seems to be what people want. And then another one is we're going to have some other people do the souping up of the product,
Okay.
and we just want to do some quality control and make sure it's
Yeah.
up to the same standard before.
Yeah,
we make-
because I think I remember just some chatter not long ago about there being materials issues.
Yeah, well, we found for the Rogue's Revenge, we found the material that would go inside the hat. Because the original material was like this secret Canadian defense project.
Right, some crazy lead
Yeah.
buckshot thing.
Yeah, but not lead, but like
Not
uranium.
just as dense. Yeah, right.
The cadmium.
Yeah.
It's a free show. Yeah.
And
So there's an alternative possibly for
right.
that.
I mean, we ordered a lot of metal balls. That's what we did. A lot of samples of metal balls in different
Just another
sizes.
Saturday.
Yep, that's the Tuesday at Scam Stuff. And I think we found one that worked really well. And then the people that did the stitching for us in the hats are out of that business, and so we had to find someone else who wanted to stitch the weaponization of the hat into the hat.
Yeah,
And I
interesting.
think there's someone down the road right outside of San Antonio that will do that for us.
So this is kind of becoming like an in-house product at this point.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, we get the raw materials, certain things get handled by different people, and then it finally comes to us, and we bag it and barcode it and send it over to the fulfillment center, and everybody's happy.
Yeah, very cool. We'll keep an eye out for that. I have a few things to talk about. This week, it is Podcast City up in here. That's right.
Population 2.
Population. Well, 3-ish.
This week, yeah.
This week is 3-ish. So Brian's partner on Night Attack, the comedy podcast, is in town today. Today's Tuesday. He's in town until Thursday because he is going to Italy at the end of May for like 2 weeks. And
Bougie.
he wants
grief.
and so he wants to like not have to deal with finding internet and figuring out time zones, because time zones make it crazy to do like the late night time slots that we have for the shows. And so he's in town today, and we're gonna make some podcasts over the next few days. We're gonna have I can talk about this now, especially because they've been confirmed finally. See Robert Cargill from you might know from the writer of Doctor Strange.
Maybe you've heard of it.
Maybe you heard of it. And we're gonna have Corey and Martin from Double Toasted coming into town or here into the studio to record some banked episodes of Night Attack. So those will be coming out at the end of May. And then we're also doing a Weird Things episode. We're banking some episodes of Weird Things. And so that'll be a little busy just because it's like we have the stuff today, right? This and Night Attack in the evening, but then now Wednesday we've got 2 shows in the afternoon and evening, and then 2 shows on Thursday in the afternoon and evening. And so it's gonna be a little bit of driving, and it's enough where it will cut into some of my editing time for the week. And so I still would like to have this week's Scam Nation go up on Thursday, but I think there's a real significant possibility that gets pushed to Friday just to have enough editing time for that stuff. But most of those will be offline. So I think we'll do like what we've done with like the live shows for Night Attack, where we just stream them on the week that they would air on the podcast feed. So there'll still be a live stream on those days, but they will have been recorded. At least my understanding is they will have been recorded offline, and there won't be a live chat and all this stuff. But yeah, so that's coming up. Another thing that we did, this happened not long after we recorded last month's episode. Number Files Dr. James Grime came to town. He flew in because he was doing a lecture in a neighboring city, and we caught wind of it and we stole him, and we recorded some stuff with him. And those videos both came up. Those are both out now. Talking about the Razzle Dazzle board, which Annalise and John put together. Let's start with that because I think that was a really good episode. That was a little bit of a different sort of thing for us. This Razzle Dazzle scam video. I mean, I guess it is still. I think it's vaguely in like the instructional sort of format that we have of like showing it off and then explaining it. But I think it's also even more information. Like I think you walk away from this knowing how to do the Razzle Dazzle scam, how to perform it on someone else. But I don't think it's going to be something that people go out and do like the other tricks that we show on the channel.
Because, well, you actually really couldn't legally do this in most cases.
Right. If you actually played this for cash, it would be fraud. It would be fraud and gambling and any number of,
it
of
is
bad things.
One of the few episodes that actually teaches an actual scam on Scam Nation.
And the video's done well. It's at like 267,000 views, which is like
it's great for.
It's one of our best ones, maybe our best video since we changed the name, and I'm really stoked about it. But it was definitely a weird thing. We shot this one a little differently, and we'll talk about the shooting style of this because it's very similar to the other thing that I'll talk about in a minute. But we shot it a little differently. But one of the things that came up in editing was like, how much do we show in this first half of the video where James is performing it for Brian? Because part of the scam is that you miscount, but you don't miscount so that they don't win. You miscount so they do win, because otherwise they would never win, and you use it to kind of keep them hooked. And so this was like Jim's first time doing it. He's not like a master fast counter. You know, he's not. He says so in the video that this was his first time doing it, and it was definitely a thing of, do we either show him in real time miscounting, or do we cut away and just have him say what the count that he ended up with was? I'd be interested in hear where you guys fell on it, but we ended up landing with how I envisioned it, which was showing it in real time of him counting.
Well, I like that. I like that in theory.
Yeah, I like that too, because even though like for a second viewers might be a little frustrated, or like, hey, wait a second, you know, when the reveal happens, they're like, oh, that was the point.
Yeah, I actually didn't catch this episode. I saw the other James Grime video.
Sure.
But it kind of reminds me of an ideological question that I had to confront when I worked on Scam School back with the old format, where it would be a lot of the same kind of stuff, where it's like, oh, which angle do I show this from?
Do I make it look better to make it look more impressive, or for me, I guess I haven't figured out a better word for it, but like the honesty of seeing it as it sort of happens.
Yeah, and so the thing that I kind of settled on is for that first block or whatever, especially with the way that Scam School was formatted, I would want the presentation of the trick to be as honest to the participants' experience as possible, right? So if there's something that's very clearly palmed or whatever, that you can see from basically all angles, except for the audience's angle, then it makes a ton of sense to use a pickup shot or B-roll from the audience perspective in that moment to sell the illusion as the participant sees it. So in a situation like this, it is kind of tough because, you know, in the moment it's a little bit easier to I could totally see the argument that in the moment, you know, the person's not going to be able to stop the video and sit there and count along with him or whatever, because you're just kind of caught up in the moment. So maybe skipping some of that could be viable in order to honor the experience of the participant. But at the same time, you know, I don't worry too much about people being given all of the information they need to figure it out before the reveal. Yeah. Even though I know a lot of people like to do that, or at least a handful of people like to do that. But you know, I could see it going both ways.
Yeah. I think my reasoning for it was that either like the overwhelmingly the comments that we got were like, oh yeah, I noticed the miscounting and I thought, what, James was miscounting, what, he's the mathematician guy. And there were only like a handful of people who were like kind of had negative comments to that effect of like, well, it's obvious that he was miscounting, and I think especially if you know that you're watching a scam and you know that it's pretty clear that counting is a part of it, or if you have video controls and can stop and go along with you can definitely tell. Obviously, he's not counting right. But I think the alternative of like, you know, cutting away and trimming down those counting moments to either just like seeing some of the count and cutting away to him saying what his count is or whatever would have felt like, well, I don't know. It wouldn't even give you the opportunity to be fooled like someone in the moment would be, right? Part of how they fool you on this scam is like the board is huge. The numbers seem to be random, or they're like set up in a certain way that, you know, it's not even easy to tell which number goes with which hole. And by the time that you look on the sides to see whether it's the top or the bottom or the sides, they've already have started counting. Experienced people will count much faster. The numbering will be much smaller. In different versions of the game, they'll use like ping pong balls or clothespins, and they'll actually like cover over some of the numbers to like manipulate the count that way too. And so I would rather like have tried to have an honest version of that experience, or like a more, I don't know, something analogous to a real world version of that experience, where someone is watching and maybe they're counting or maybe they can tell the count because he's not super fast at it, versus not even representing that experience. You know, because I think that would have been more. I think that would have led to more negativity in the comments of just like, well, what does that look like then, right? Like if we're cutting out him trying it, when else would we have seen him do this fast counting, or you know, that's kind of why I feel good about going with that decision. I think Brian was definitely in the camp of just like cutting it down. I think because James is not fast at the miscounting, of possibly making him look bad or whatever. But I just don't. I don't know. I think I've kind of settled into my stance on it.
Yeah, this seems like a trickier use case than most when it comes to finding the balance for this kind of thing. Especially
because, like I was saying, like I don't think this is something anyone's ever going to use. I think this is like a mathematical oddity, and you know, I guess if you did the dice version of the game that they show later in the video, that's later in the video, but I don't think you're going to walk away doing this on anybody, right? It's not like you're going to take it out to the bar and try to catch someone with, hey, let me pull out my board and my marbles.
You know? And I also think, to your credit, like the old Skim School format was very much, we're going to sell the audience reaction. And it was all about like, whatever makes this trick look the way that you understand how they're reacting at the end of it is fine. Whereas this is very clearly like Brian kind of has an idea of what's going on.
Oh yeah. He definitely, like, I actually rather would have, I almost wish he had, because I think he could immediately tell that James is not counting right, or again, because it's confusing, and either way you decide to figure out which way he should be counting, it's clear that he's not doing it right. And I think I actually think it would have been a better reaction for him to be like, no, I could tell you were like maybe not counting right, or it was confused. Like I kind of wish he would have leaned into it more. And granted, we kind of didn't know exactly how we were going to present it when we shot it. But for something like this, which is more expose style than, teaching, I almost kind of would have rather had that, because then that could solidify for the people who in the comments were upset about the miscounting or only notice the miscounting and don't get that they're not using it to cheat you out of money. They're using it to at least give you the effect that you're winning. I actually feel like that would have been a fun thing to have, but this one was sort of a weird one for that.
But yeah, and since it's not all built up to the moment of Brian going, oh my God, how is this happening? Because it's not like one of those kind of things. I think showing it a little bit more matter of fact makes sense.
Yeah. The other video that we did with James was an interview sort of video. After we shot the Razzle Dazzle thing, we just sat down, we sat the two of them down and filmed them talking for about 20 minutes, and then we cut it up and we put it up as a talk. And I think it is also doing really well, I think partially because it's his name on the video.
He's kind of wonderful. I think I've expressed this a few times, but James Grime is just so deliciously British and witty and fun and smart. Like I don't know if you know, but I drove him. Where the hell did I drive him? I was the one who drove.
To Waco,
all the way back to Britain.
I drove him for a couple hours somewhere.
I think it was up to Waco for his lecture that he was coming into town to do.
Yes, and we even stopped and we had lunch and, just had great conversations about British television and about, customer service in America. And just a fantastic guy to talk to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes out in this interview. And I think it's a good interview, and I think it's definitely a format we can explore more of, especially with the idea of trying to have more guests on to show things off. It was interesting, and from format wise, it is pretty different, right? Because it was not even a structured talk when they started. So there's kind of just an ad kind of put in at a good point, which we've done before, but also like there's no music over most of it. The intro has some music over the little sort of teaser clip. There's also, this is our first time using the full screen Scam Nation graphic as like a faux title screen. We've never used this graphic as a title screen, like the old Scam School sort of title screen.
Right.
Are those colors like going to be the standard colors?
Yeah, those have been the colors, the accent colors that we've been using. Yeah, the sort of red blue dynamic.
It's unique.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's a splash of color that I like the channel and the graphic package of the channel having to kind of make it feel a little more universal and not just for young guys. I don't know. But yeah, it was interesting. I definitely spent so it's like this 20-minute talk, and it's a very good conversation, and they talk about some of the stuff that they've done, and at the end they talk about some mathematical principles. But I definitely spent a disproportionate amount of time with this full screen graphic coming up. It's about the 19-minute mark, explaining this principle, the Buffon's needle. And it was mostly just to like understand this effect of like, well, if you drop a needle of a certain size on a plane with lines that are a certain size away from each other, what's the probability that they're going to land where the needle crosses one of those lines? And it's an approximation of pi, right? You do it thousands and thousands of times and you get kind of close to pi. But I had no idea what that was. You can hear it in the voice track that like Brian is saying like the probability is 2 pi over 2 or something like that. And you can definitely hear it is like super edited, because the thing Brian said was I don't think it was wrong, because I think he was also saying something different, because I also have to cut out the first part of the thing he's saying to get to the point that most people get to with that probability, or that with that problem. But like it was tough, because it's not an easy thing to sort of dial down. And like there's the graphic on there, the video graphic, where like there's like a simulation of dropping needles. There's a really good web app that is doing that in realish time. And so that really helps illustrate it, I think, really well. Not just the principle, but also like what pi is. If you think of like a circle, and the diameter is you have the diameter and the circumference is all of the needles you drop, and the diameter is how many needles cross the line. And over time, the ratio of those becomes the circle is full, and the circumference is, I think the circumference always stays constant. But I think that it made me just picture pi in a way I did not understand. Anyway.
Sure.
So I spent a lot more time with that than, say, a lot of the other video, because there's less than a minute of like full screen graphics on this whole thing, but getting that right. And then the other one is I cut, so that part of the conversation. Okay, I know I'm talking a lot about this conversation that you can go listen to.
Nerd.
Right after that, Brian like jumps into it's like right after that, Brian jumps into another mathematical thing. And actually, James had chimed in with this other similar thing, and I couldn't find it. He was mentioning something, and I could tell it was kind of related to the Busson's needle thing that we were showing, but I couldn't for the life of me find what he was talking about. And so I had to cut it, because when they're talking about stuff, I wanted Illustrator or at least give a name for it, and I couldn't. And so it's little stuff like that I think in another world this would have been like a 30-minute podcast, and we could have kept it pretty much uncut, the way that we do our podcast here, right? Almost all live to tape,
right?
But because this was a very production focused thing, it was like I wanted every bit of it to have like something people could take away. And so I didn't want to have that bit where he's saying, I don't know what it's called, I don't even know what country it's from, but here's a kind of thing that they did. I didn't want that to be I don't want that to be kind of like that. So that's the and that one's also doing well. That's almost like 60,000 views or something like that. And that's good. I hope that this momentum can keep up, just because those were the James Grimes things that we shot.
Right.
And we'll be back this week with another Diamond Jim Tyler thing. So that's the James Grimes stuff. One last thing on Scam Nation. Over this past week, we went out and shot some Scam Nations at the bar. This was your first time at Moon Tower, is that right, John?
I've never been to Moon Tower, which looks like every other Austin bar insofar as it is a bar becoming a theme park. Every bar in Austin has like a playground, and like, can be a wedding chapel, and like they're gonna have roller coasters soon.
Fire pit.
Yeah, like,
sure. Well, and Moon Tower is unique because it's almost all outdoor. Which, granted, we tend to like lean, like Rusty Mule is a very similar way, but that's kind of why we lean on it, because it's outdoor, which is not just a visual thing, but also like helps out a lot with the sound issues. Like the inside places that we go to is very difficult with sound. Even like Handlebars can be difficult if there are too many people there.
Right.
But so we went and shot our first Scam Nation out at the bar. It's not the first one that we shot at a bar. It's our first one not at a bar that was not the Rusty Mule, but it was also like our first big like, hey, people come out and do this thing and join us. I guess we've had a few that were supposed to be like that, but they didn't wind up being like that.
This one went several hours, didn't it?
It did. It went a few hours. At Moon Tower, we're always fighting against the band, and so that was kind of one of the things. But we went and shot like 6 videos about riddles and puzzles and stuff, and half of them were good meaty episodes, and half of them went by very, very, very quickly.
I wonder if those other half that are short can just be like one episode of 3 boom boom, you know.
Yeah, and
the problem was half of them were just solved.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like either trick riddles of like, oh, it's actually this thing that you said, or whatever.
Oh, I see.
And so for one of, and I think we will probably do that with 2 of them. For one of them, he actually like, that was he has this really funny idea, I think, of like, because the video would only be like a minute and a half long, to just put on like 10 minutes of one of the other podcasts that we do onto it, so it looks like it's not just cause, which I think will be fun. And then the other 2, I think, because of the way that they're shot, because we try to shoot them kind of independently, not give them a lot of like, you know, we're starting up the thing and now we're really winding down the thing, but because they're kind of a little independent in that sense, we can probably bundle the other 2 short ones together to be a sort of meaty thing. And even then that also gives 5 videos out of that, which I think was pretty good. But the reason I bring that up, or want to speak a little bit more about it, is because we shot it very similar to how we shot the Razzle Dazzle video, in that we didn't have a master shot like we normally do. Our normal shooting style is that we have a master shot to try to be a safety to get as many people talking as we can, and then side cameras to get either action or people's faces as they're talking. And for all of these, right? In lieu of a master shot, I manned a dedicated like table or like a shot. Yeah. And I still haven't looked at any of the footage, so I don't know how it came out. But hopefully it's good. You know, not having a master shot is going to make it interesting to edit, especially because we edit very dialogue. I know my first edit around is always with dialogue. And so it will be interesting to kind of cut around that. Though I didn't have as much issue with it with the Razzle Dazzle thing. But I don't know. It's something we haven't done very much. I think even with Modern Rogue, we've always tried to have a master shot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I hope it goes out well, because it also just meant that we could shoot those a lot faster without having to do a lot of pickups.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't know. Well, I guess I'll have a better report next episode on that. But the way that we've shot has I inherited from you. You know, when it was pretty much you, Brandt, doing Scam School shoots and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a holdover from the previous production team who was doing it before we took it in house, or do you remember
it was strictly like there were some shoots where I was the only person operating cameras.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to make do with what you got.
Yeah.
And then sometimes Zach would be there, and you know, it's like, okay, well, let's just modify what we got for now.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of grew out from there.
Yeah. Because I mean, John, I mean, you might have a better sense of this. The way that we shoot with that style of like a master and 2 sides, I know that your experience in California was probably a little different, but is that an Aliens sort of shooting style?
Nah, it's
no
3 camera setup. Yeah.
Okay.
Master and 2 sides. I mean, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty standard.
I just I don't know. I still don't know. Like it was once we were done filming that I felt like, oh, that might have been a huge mistake. Or it was a weightier decision than I thought it was in the moment.
Sure.
And I guess I'll just see, because I don't think I would want to do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I know for stuff like that where it's like having good coverage is always important, especially when it's people talking, because we edit to dialogue so much.
Mm-hmm.
But also having real-time pickups also helps out a lot also.
Yeah, it's you lose some safety nets going that route.
Yeah.
There are definitely advantages. I mean, ideally, in like a perfect world, you would have like
a 4th camera,
a 4th camera overhead with like a crane or something.
Yeah.
Just to get everything. But yeah, it can be tough, and I think a big reason why I never really did too much of that was because I always felt pretty comfortable with the typical 3-camera setup of being able to have just enough information to be able to piece everything back together
With
and then
pickups.
generate on-screen graphics if I needed to.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that was part of, like, I knew going into this stuff it would all be riddles and stuff.
Yeah, with the Razzle Dazzle, I think it was a guaranteed good decision the way we shot it. But with this one, I'm sure there were a few moments where you're like, man, do we really need that overhead for what they're doing?
Yeah. Well, and to that though, when there is like, especially any of the more verbal like riddle sort of things, that was where I could be a secondary face camera to have. It's not the same as a master shot, but it could be another angle to cut away to for editing dialogue. So, yeah, I guess we'll just see kind of how that goes. I wouldn't want to do that all the time, but I do think if that went well, it would be good to feel confident about shooting that style.
And our intern was in it.
Yeah, Annalisa was in those videos, and she was great. She's great. We have a question from Dylan in the chat. What happened to the crane? Has that moved to HQ? No, that is still in the current warehouse.
it's just collecting dust.
Yep.
Yeah.
Getting in the way.
As in, we just need to disassemble it and get it out of there, I think.
Disassemble number 5. No, disassemble.
Oh, I don't.
Come on.
Is that
Someone-
They're too young.
Is it-
They're too.
is
they're-
someone-
Missing me
Daleks?
with that.
sorry,
Is it
but
the
they're too
Daleks?
young.
Doctor Who? I don't know.
No. Johnny 5 alive.
There.
Come on.
Oh, I see.
They're too young. They're-
Yeah.
But yeah, right now, because I guess HQ is still not done, and it's such a big thing, we wouldn't get too much use out of it.
And
Probably.
there's a lot of stuff still at the warehouse that hasn't been moved over.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
one day in
Yep.
2
2
weeks,
weeks.
right?
Yep.
well, I didn't say 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. So let's get into some kind of off-topic sort of stuff. Or is this more on topic, Brandt? This bottom one here?
It's tangentially topical.
Okay, I'm gonna call this offish topic.
Okay, that's fair.
You got a little piece of equipment.
I did. I got a piano keyboard, 61 key. It's pretty nice. I would love to incorporate it into video production as much as possible. Like I did the when we had our Monoroke video that was moving a body, which was our 3 stretcher things.
Yeah.
There's a little cold open at the start where Grant is in the tree, and there's like a little bit of a musical cue that kind of plays during that, and I played that on my keyboard.
Oh, cool.
And so that was fun. I've been messing around with it. I used to play on a piano keyboard back 10 years ago or so, just kind of self-taught little things here and there.
Yeah.
It's really tough. I don't know how to use any of that stuff. I can do like a little chord progression here and there.
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, okay, these are like a few chords that fit together and sound right. And
Yeah.
then I don't know what to do.
what kind of a keyboard is it?
Just a MIDI keyboard.
Yeah.
What
It's
software do you use with it?
So right now I've been using Machine. I've been using their
Machine.
software.
Yeah.
Just because it came with it.
You should hit me up on Slack because I have I don't know if it's a Udemy course or it's one of those like online like lessons things that I bought about music theory, and it talks a little bit about some of that stuff, which I think might, if that's something you want to get into, I think I have some way of sharing that. Probably I have a way of stealing that.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
We can figure that out.
Boot up OBS.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Just give me my login. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I've never found too many times to use like say my own music in videos.
Sure.
The 2 that I can think of off the top of my head are the week that we went to Dragon Con and we filmed a behind the scam out there. I think I was limited to whatever music I had on my iPhone because I was editing in an iMovie, and so I used just a track of mine that I had.
Sure.
And then actually, was it for this interview? The ad that we did in this interview with James Grime? No, it might have been the Razzle Dazzle. We did the salad domain ad again,
Right.
and because we had a jazzy sort of musical piece under it, we couldn't use that. So I went and found a new jazz piece from the Free Music Archive, and also layered in an old song of mine with which is like this heavy distortion sort of thing for the end of it, where it's kind of corrupting the video.
I like the salad ad.
It's a very good ad. I'm very proud of it. But yeah, other than that, because I don't know, for me, music production is such an involved thing. It kind of, it's certainly not something I can easily do with a video production deadline, you know?
Yeah, it's we've got a video that hopefully we'll shoot soon, that it's been months, a research video, and I want to score that, and so it's gonna have like a little bit more of hopefully more of like an atmospheric kind of score.
Sure.
And
some beds.
Yeah, some stuff like that to just like accentuate moments and stuff.
Pads,
And,
yep.
Yeah, because
swells.
Yeah, because
risers,
Some shimmers.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because I feel like our usual like hip hop stuff wouldn't be like terribly appropriate for the topic.
Sure.
And for the presentation. So I just want to do something different with that, and I'm optimistic that will be viable, because I feel like I've seen so much video with music that I understand how music can like affect moments, and I can like build the music to the moments.
Sure.
But if I have no video component, it's just like, well, I could hit these keys.
Yeah. Well, you could, especially if you're doing something a little more arrhythmic, you could even layer it out in terms of just like build various swells and various, ins and outs, and even just fade between them to kind of construct it on the fly. I mean, that is putting a lot of like tracking and dubbing, or not necessarily dubbing, but sequencing on top of also producing the video. But it would give you a lot of control.
Sure.
Kind of like with like the Film Riot music packs, where they give you all the layers, right?
Yeah.
You that's something you could do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see how that goes. I don't think we've talked too much about it on this show, the scripted video.
Right. Yeah.
But maybe we'll talk about that once we produce it. Once we shoot it.
It's one of those things where it's like when you're working on like a project on the side, and you're like, oh, there's a good idea here, and I think it'll turn into something. Sometimes when you share it with people, you get like that same like chemical reaction in your brain that you get from actually completing something. So if I share a project with somebody, I'm like, oh, this is a really cool idea, right? And they go, yeah, that's a really cool idea. Then I go, great, I'm done.
I did it. Yeah.
Yep.
Sure.
Good work.
I feel great. Thanks.
I saw that TED Talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, we'll talk about it once we shoot it.
Yeah.
We almost shot it this weekend.
Close.
Close to, but
That's pretty much like being done, though. I think we're done. We're finished.
yeah, good work, everybody.
Yeah.
And only one cut. Very cool. Okay, so on to more off-topic stuff. Before we hit the new Brandt, the new Trek date, the new Brandt Trek date, David,
What's up?
I gotta
Hello.
know. People gotta know. If they're only listening to audio, they have missed this the entire time.
Gots to know.
Do you have any plugs?
Well,
All right, it comes later in the show.
that's later in the show.
Yeah, please.
Is that bleached? Is your hair bleached?
No, I've just been under a lot of stress recently. And
Fair.
yeah.
I only ask because it's darker than bleached hair would look.
Well, it's supposed, so you have to do it twice. This is the first time. And the
I
second
see.
time it's ice white.
Mm.
And it was like I found a couple gray hairs, and I was like, checkmate, making them all.
Sure.
white.
An arms race.
That's
Yeah.
it. Oh, hair race.
Hair race.
So yeah, and then I actually was in Hawaii this morning.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my god.
So that's why there's the sunburn here, and
Oh my gosh. I thought it was just that purple light.
yeah. So
Wow.
He's
This
a
is what
transporter
this
again
is what
over here.
happens
Like,
when you-
what's?
this is what happens when you go to Hawaii. Like strange things happen. So,
Yeah. You even got the goatee. You did not have any facial hair, and now
I watered my
It's a
face.
law in Hawaii.
I watered my face by accident. and started growing.
It's a good look on you. I gotta say.
Thank you. Yeah, mix it up. You know what I mean?
A little spice.
Yeah, I was in the Big Island.
Okay.
And then technically, while it was
So
midnight
Oahu?
here,
Uh-huh.
I was on Honolulu.
Oh, okay.
Or on Oahu in Honolulu. So technically, earlier today, I was in Hawaii, and it's kind of crazy to think.
Why were you
That's
in
crazy.
Hawaii, if you don't mind me prying?
Oh, because it's nice in Hawaii.
Oh, fair enough.
Just a vacation.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Just for a few days, yeah.
Yeah.
Over there, buddy.
That's very nice. Very cool. Brandt,
Yeah.
let's trek the stars in the segment of the show that we call Trekking the Stars.
All right.
Searching the
I-
trek star.
I didn't agree to that.
If I had the keyboard, I would play a couple
yeah.
pads. I'd be tracking the stars.
Okay. Yeah. It's still not it.
So last month we found out that you had just finished the film series,
Yes.
the film series of Star Trek,
I went through all of the films.
and now you are on
Enterprise.
Enterprise. Okay.
The
I'd like to
television series.
Point out that Brandt's handwriting is so small that it's like private to the person sitting next to him.
Yeah. It's
I'm
built-in
literally
privacy.
looking directly at what he wrote, and I cannot
What
read
the
it.
hell is that?
Yeah. Well, you work on the little Hobonichi Techu, and it's like it's this big for a whole day's timeline. You learn to write small.
Sure.
So Enterprise was the television series that came out in 2004, 2002.
Yeah.
And it's a series that I feel like gets it's a series that I feel like a lot of times when you mention it, people just kind of like reel back a little bit and they're like, oh,
Like, oh, you did that. Oh.
Enterprise.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of people to work really hard on a television show to get anything done.
Sure.
So I'll get a couple bad things out of the way.
Okay,
And
please
then
do.
and then I'll hopefully there'll be a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay, sure. It's
The theme is atrocious. It's maybe my least favorite theme song of any television show I have ever seen.
Not a Firefly fan?
Fireflies is fun.
I like Firefly, and the theme is fine. But
Okay, so bad theme, Enterprise, bad
yeah.
theme.
Also, I have here that Captain Archer is a petty child who only got the job because of nepotism. He's the Michael Scott of outer space.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
Not a big fan of him.
Sure.
And they do a weird thing where, like, later in the series, they try to make him kind of a tough guy, which doesn't really work too often.
Yeah.
It's just like I think towards the very end of the series, they kind of get him into a place where he's like a captain who's like seen enough that he's a bit disillusioned by the process, and I feel like that
jaded,
kind of
yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he's just tired of it.
Mhm.
He just
End
wants
the
this to be
show.
done.
It's not a good show.
Although they keep doing this thing where they're like, "Hey, you play a really important role in humanity." Like somebody from the future will come back and be like, "Hey, like seriously, you have to do this because like the timeline of humanity really needs you to do this." And he's so like, "Nah, just take me home. I don't want to do any of this." Which is really frustrating because it's just like, dude, he's saying this is important. We all know you're gonna do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
And every single
I have no interest in Star Trek, but this is a favorite. This is a highlight of my month.
every single episode, there's at least one moment where I just find myself sitting back and saying out loud to myself, "You fucking idiot." And it's almost always Captain Archer.
Yeah.
Like 85-90% of the time it's
Wow.
Captain Archer.
Ooh, big percentage.
Poor Scott Bakula. He could just never find his niche after Quantum Leap.
Maybe the next show would be the
next
show
one's gonna
that
be the
would
one?
buy
Yep.
him a home.
So I like the idea of exploring the origins of things. This is the earliest in the timeline canonically.
Sure.
Because this is the first deep space mission, basically.
Okay.
This is like,
Deep
hey,
Space One.
Sure. This is like, hey, we've got this engine that's the fastest engine we've ever made.
Yeah.
Aliens have faster engines, but it's the fastest we've ever made. So we're just going to send you out in space, and you're going to make first contact with a bunch of aliens, and you're just going to find out what's out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool, and it results in some good moments and bad moments. There's like a bad moment where there's a moment where they have like this moral dilemma, and they're trying to figure out like, oh, this alien species is being subjugated by another alien species. We have the opportunity to influence that a little bit. Do we, do we not? And the whole episode is fine. But then at the very end, Captain Archer has this like little monologue where it's like super, super on the nose, where he goes, you know, I feel like someday in the future, there'll just be like a federation of planets. And, you know, maybe there'll be some sort of directive, like a prime directive.
Like an alpha directive.
That's embarrassing.
that will help people navigate these muddy waters.
That sounds awful.
And I'm just like, you're just saying the things that happen in the future series, like exactly.
Somebody wrote that down.
Yeah.
And other people approved it.
Yeah, they were like, that's it. That's good.
And it got filmed.
Got it.
Yeah.
In one.
No such thing as two on the nose.
Like a whole team had that in their hands at one point,
Yeah.
and it got made.
So
Subtlety is overrated.
I was really frustrated with that, but there are some great moments.
Okay.
Like there's this thing where if the ship is like encountering a hostile ship out in space or whatever, they go to red alert.
Oh.
And so they push a button and the lights flash red, and it basically activates all of their defenses and activates their weapons automatically.
I feel like they, red alert, they should keep the lights the normal color so that you can see which ones are and are not red. I feel like making the entire planet red, or the entire ship red, would decrease efficiency by more than 0%. And makes it a bad idea to do.
I mean, they could still see it. It's like accent lighting, I think.
Okay.
In most situations.
If it's just accent lighting, then that's fine. I was thinking like, because that's a thing
just
where,
black out all the lights, only red lights.
but that's like that's more of like an
Hit
action
the white
movie sort
button,
of
Bryce.
thing, but
I
can't tell which one's white. Yeah, I don't know. Okay,
Sure.
so the accent lighting, it's just the little lights
But
on
that-
the airplanes.
But that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So red alert has been a thing through all the series, and it's a taken for granted technology. It's the kind of thing where it's just like, that's just how things have always been, so nobody mentions it in the series or whatever. But this is early enough in the timeline that it's not a thing. And
so everyone doesn't know what's happening when it.
well, so there's like, the captain will tell the crew that, hey, there's this emergency happening or whatever, but they don't have like this big automated system. Well, there's this one episode where they get close to this cosmic event or whatever that's emitting radiation that's messing with everybody's brains.
Yeah.
So people are like getting hyper obsessive about things. So like the captain tells the head of engineer like, hey man, my chair just doesn't like fit right. Can you work on that? Can you just like fix my chair?
While there's an emergency going on.
No, this is while they're just traveling out in space.
Gotcha.
And he's like, oh yeah, sure, man, I got it. And so he starts like doing like fine little tunings. And then as they get closer to this thing and they get more radiation, they just get more and more obsessive. So he starts like ripping out the chair and like implementing all of these design features and everything. And he's just like super over engineering the chair.
Yeah.
And there are a few different people who do these things. One of them is the security guy, and he's got like this giant list of every encounter they've had with alien species and how their defenses were inadequate for it. So he starts developing what becomes Red Alert. And so he's like, oh yeah, you just, as soon as something bad happens, you push this button and then all the weapons go up and all the shields go up and everything goes crazy.
Yeah.
And then there's an emergency that happens at the end of the episode. They go to Red Alert and it helps them out. And then they get out of the situation and everybody comes back to normal and they're like, oh yeah, let's just like the chair's fine. Don't worry about the chair. This stuff is fine.
Yeah.
And then they're like, he's like, okay, I'm just going to disassemble all of this crazy defense stuff. And then the captain's like, actually, it kind of helped us out. So maybe like, let's just leave that there.
So it was like in question whether that's so weird.
Yeah. And
That's
so
a weird concept.
It just sort of becomes this thing, and it's a very fun explanation for this thing that just exists in all the other series. There is
Every now and then during this podcast, we should just go to Red Alert.
we should. Yes.
Well,
we got the lights to do it.
we do have a few lights, but we don't have the app.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, there's like universal translator. That's been a thing in all the series, so that way all the aliens can speak English and the audience understands everything.
Yeah.
They tap something to do that? Or does it automatically happen?
I think it automatically happens, although in the older series, it's kind of like a little device that they flip out and open up, and it just...
It's a fish that you put in your ear.
Yeah. And so this is before that has been fully developed.
Okay.
So usually there's a comms officer on the ship who is like in charge of hailing and contacting alien species and stuff. But in this series, the comm officer is specifically like a xenolinguistic expert, somebody
that's
who
clever.
has studied language.
Yeah.
And so she just acts as a translator throughout the series, which is very fun.
Yeah.
And then they're also building up the database of the universal translator as they go along. And so they kind of drop that early on, where at a certain point, the universal translator just kind of works.
Yeah.
But any series that has like language as a barrier to overcome is always deeply fascinating to me. So I really appreciate that.
Cool.
Let's see. Going through my notes here. Comms officer. Temporal Cold War is cool. There's basically the idea is that sometime in the future, time travel is a method of time travel is discovered, but not everybody can agree on what is an appropriate use of it. So there are some people who are trying to like regulate it, and then other people who are going back in time to basically erase species from existence, so that way there are no regulations.
Oh, okay.
And it's like the show gets kind of mired in it a little bit by focusing a little too deeply on it in season 3 or whatever. But like, it's a very cool idea. And I like that it's there. Some people have said that it breaks stuff, but I would have to sit down and like think about it.
So a libertarian paradise is a world without people.
There you go.
All right.
So there it is.
Hot takes.
Okay.
How many more points we got?
Let's do.
He's got about 7 pages.
Oh my goodness.
No, I've got 2 more points.
Okay.
This first one, really quickly, they get really into putting sparks everywhere, which is kind of great. So when they like shoot phasers and stuff, they'll have like a detonation that throws out sparks everywhere.
Whoa.
And it kind of works pretty well, because a lot of times in Star Trek, it's like they shoot phasers and it just pew, pew. It's just like yeah. But here, there's an episode that's like an Old West episode or whatever, and they have detonation charges underwater when the phasers hit the water, and like they do a decent job of making it feel like there's actually some physical presence to these phaser fires.
Cool.
And then lastly, I just kind of want to talk about an episode or two that like is perfectly like a microcosm of Enterprise, like perfectly indicative of what they almost get right and how they fail to get that right.
Okay.
So there's this episode where they find like a repair station out in space, because the episode prior they have like a part of their hull ripped off, and so they're like, oh, we got to fix this. We can't go to warp. We can't do anything or go anywhere.
Sure.
So they're sending out a distress beacon, and the ship says, hey, go to this place. So they go to this place, and they show up, and it looks like this totally barren, empty hunk of metal floating in space. And they're like, I don't get it. Like, maybe we could get out there and salvage it for parts or something. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it scans the whole ship, and then it like lights up and reconfigures to the shape and size of the ship. And they're like, well, they're not answering our hails or anything, so I guess we're just going to fly in here and see what happens. Yeah. So they fly in and they walk into the center of this place, and it's all lit up, and there's like a tablet, and it's like, here's this exhaustive diagnostic of everything that's wrong with your ship. Every scratched paint, everything. And it also scanned all of the biosigns. So they're like, here's this person who's in your med bay that has an injured leg. We'll repair all of these. Just choose one of these 3 payment options.
Oh, crazy.
And it's all saying this in English and everything, and they're like, this is weird.
This is convenient.
Yeah. And so like a lot of the episode is them, they pay it and it goes to work and it starts repairing things and it's doing it really fast. And a lot of the episode is them, exploring sort of the mundanity of what would it be like to just have this repair station out in space. Like that's kind of a cool, weird thing. They like crawl up into a vent because one of the guys just really wants to see like the computer room in the back or whatever. And so they're crawling up in there and it detects them. And then it's just like, yeah, we're just going to teleport you back to your ship. And so it just immediately beams them back.
Yeah. It is infallibly like impossible to get into.
Yeah. And there's also a bit at the end, and it's part of this big plan thing. But there's a bit at the end where they're like, well, what do we do if we're not satisfied with the service? Because it's just this tablet. There's nobody we can talk to.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, I'm just not going to pay you until I agree to these terms or whatever.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it could have been just this fun little sort of quiet, isolated thing.
Yeah.
But they needed something to blow up and something to be an enemy. So the repair station like steals a person and then they got to get the person back and blow up the station. And it's just like they were doing so good and then they fumbled it right before they crossed the finish line.
Weird.
And there's like
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Like you do need, I don't think you need to blow it up, but you do need to have some sort of conflict.
Yeah.
But also
environmental disposal fee. What is this?
I'm not paying this. Yeah. Dispose this.
But yeah, there's something just really deeply fascinating about the core concept of just this really normal thing in a really not normal space.
Sure.
And then, they just had to develop this weird antagonist. And one last episode, it's kind of a really similar thing in the way that it's a really cool idea that doesn't go where I feel like it should. So they're flying through space, and then there's the spaceship that comes up behind them. It looks like a big whale, like the whale with the big open mouth or whatever, and it just like swallows them up. And then it immobilizes them. They can't fly their ship. They can't use their weapons or anything. So they send a couple people down to investigate the ship. And when they get out there, they see these blue wisps just floating around, and they don't show up on any of their sensors, but they're like, this is clearly intelligent life, so it seems. So one of the wisps goes into the face of one of the guys on the crew, and then it pulls out like this yellow wispy thing. And the dude is just like totally zonked out, unresponsive. They're just like, dude, what's going on? And then the blue wisp comes back, puts the yellow thing back in his face, and then leaves. And then he suddenly snaps back to, and he's like, this is the craziest experience ever. I was up on the ceiling looking down at the three of us from a third person perspective. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was just in Florida with my girlfriend or whatever. He just had like this out of body experience, and then he was somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they go back to the thing, they go back to the ship, and the doctor's like, yeah, man, it's like a hallucination. This is not an uncommon thing to happen in such a strange experience.
Sure.
And he's adamant, not a hallucination. Same thing happens to him when he's on the ship. Except now, instead of being totally unresponsive, he's just acting really weird. So they hunt him down, and they find out that the blue wisp was basically possessing his body.
Okay.
And then the yellow wisp was his essence or spirit or whatever,
his animus, his soul. Sure.
Yeah, and they talk to
it seems very soft sciencey for a Star Trek show.
Sure it can be sometimes. But so they talk to this guy as he's being possessed, and they're like, who are you, what are you doing, what do you want, like what's going on here? And so they're like, they just explain it pretty frankly that, hey, we're a non-corporeal species. We evolved a long time ago to just be energy, basically. And so we're, inhabiting your bodies to learn more about our ancestors. And so if we learn about your experience, we learn about ourselves, as a byproduct. And as a trade, you get to experience life as a non-corporeal being.
Really high. Oh, okay.
So basically, this dude is like bouncing around time and space, existing as other people and
Oh my god.
just like cool, weird, interesting stuff. And he's like, yeah, like he'll be right back in just a couple minutes. I'm just learning about you people. And so I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, that's cool and interesting because it's like you'll never get this experience anywhere else. And that seems like a fair trade, although some consent
Seems
issues.
like maybe no one asked. Yeah.
Some consent issues because he didn't exactly ask. But
he did find out his girl was cheating on him, so that's good.
That's not true. And so his spirit comes back or whatever, and he's like, yeah, he's accounting all of these events that he basically experienced, and he's like, it's really hard to explain, but you have to try it. It's phenomenal. It's an incredible experience. And so immediately Captain Archer is in his room and he's like, something doesn't seem right about this. And I'm just sitting here going, he literally just told you that it was like the coolest experience he's ever had. Nobody was injured. And it's this other species that has the exact same mission and objective as you have. They literally said, we are explorers here to make first contact with other species.
Okay.
And he's just like, something's not.
It does sound sketchy. Or you have to take a lot on faith, right? In a world where these beings could either rip out your essence or inhabit your own. You don't know if there's brainwashing.
Well,
or
I do
any
like
sort
the
of
metaphor that Bryce had
danger.
about like getting high. No, it doesn't do any harm whatsoever, and it'll blow your fucking mind. Like,
But I'm saying I think it's fine to have those kind of concerns and then talk to the wisps and be like, hey, look, if you're gonna do this, we have to like set some ground rules, and these are how we're going to go forward with this. But he immediately just like starts scheming and plotting against them. And unfortunately, the show does this similar thing where it's like, okay, well, we have to have a bad guy. So all of these aliens start possessing all of the bodies of the people on Enterprise for some ambiguous reason.
Sure.
And then
it
it's
almost sounds like Captain Archer was right though.
yeah.
I mean,
and so they're like, okay, well, we have to flood all these aliens out of their bodies, and then we have to blow up their ship.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Because of course.
You always have to blow up their ship, apparently.
Yeah.
What do they need the ship for? They're non-corporeal.
But it would have been so interesting if, hear me out, they were like, the wisps were reading the minds of people, and maybe they were like telepathically asking for it. Hey, would you like to have this transference?
Sure.
And then as soon as they consented, then they went into the bodies of those people. Meanwhile, Captain Archer could be over there scheming and plotting and being like, oh, I'm freaking out because all my crew is going.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the episode, all of the people come back and they all talk about how great of an experience it was. And then Captain Archer feels like a goddamn idiot because he was over here scheming for people who were doing literally exactly what he does every single episode.
Okay.
I think that could have been a great opportunity for some self-growth and for him to better understand other alien intentions.
Why immediately distrust something? Why immediately go negative?
Right.
Sounds like a next gen episode.
Yeah. And so I saw a lot of potential, and then I felt like it was kind of squandered.
There we go. Well, that's your Enterprise talk.
But the show's fun.
The show's fine. There we go. Show's fine. David, John, anything you guys been up to lately? Any other off-topic stuff?
Well, I went to Hawaii. We know that.
That's right. I have heard. I have heard a report of that.
There's a ton of stuff to do down there, by the way.
Yeah.
Just so much stuff. Yeah. I stood in a volcano.
Whoa, really?
Inside the
technically. Technically.
Okay.
Yes. They don't actually let you go to the
the active part.
Well, right. You're about, I'd say maybe 3/4 of a mile
Okay.
from it.
Yeah. Gotta keep them safe.
And it can erupt at any moment. So,
Right.
so that was great. And then, there's just, it's so much green, and the weather is strange, and it's
good
very
food.
relaxed, and there's really good food.
Yeah.
And a lot of poke.
Oh yeah.
Poke bowls.
Poke's
right?
big.
So just a lot of raw fish.
Yeah. I like it raw fish.
They just pull it out of the ocean right there.
Nice.
And then, other than that, I'm good. If
John?
you want to see any photos, you can just go to Instagram.com/David Rowan, ROWYN.
Yeah.
David
and
Rowan.
Follow.
I don't know if I'm following you.
Yeah. Check
I'll
it
have
out.
to, I'll have to follow you now.
Yeah. See, yes.
John, anything with you?
Been reading quite a bit.
Yeah.
Which is different for me because I talked about this with Brandt the other day. There was like when I arrived in Austin, getting all my stuff unpacked, all my books, it kind of dawned on me like, holy crap, I have not actually read a book in like 4 years. And so ever since I've been in Austin, I take like 1 hour a day every day and with my coffee, and I do a little reading. And lately, because reading, it's not so much about like, learning something or, anything like that. It's more like just slowing down my brain, like putting the brakes on, because I consume a lot of information through movies and documentaries and podcasts, and it happens very fast. But with reading, you got to pace yourself. And so through that, I've been doing a lot more writing and a lot more restructuring of things. And like, for example, recently I've been reading Lila, which is the book by the guy who wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's
Pirsig.
Pirsig. It's the second book that he wrote that nobody read.
Yeah.
And it's okay, but I've been going through and breaking down the chapters like analytically and creating bullet points. And but it's just been like giving a good exercise for my brain outside of the editing booth.
Very cool. Very cool. I haven't up to too much. The Lost Watches has been on hold. I haven't made much progress in the last month. I think I'm still at the beginning of season 5. I think I don't think I'm burnt out on it.
Is that
but
the second to last season?
I think so. Yeah.
Lost.
Lost. Yeah. I've been watching Lost for the first time.
Oh, for the first time.
For the first time. For the very first time. Right.
Yeah. It is a weird point, and then you'll probably be wholly unsatisfied by how it all.
I don't know. I'm trying to keep an open mind. I love all the BS stuff in there. I love all that stuff. Yeah. Mostly because I've been distracted by it. I don't know what it was. I guess maybe I just seen a clip of it, or people were talking about it again online. But I've fallen back into watching 30 Rock from the beginning, and that show is great. That show is so good. If you've never seen 30 Rock, it's that
is
one
on
of
the
the
list.
best comedy
Tracy Morgan
series. Yeah,
Tina Fey, Baldwin,
Alec Baldwin, Jenna Krakowski.
Yes, Jane
Krakowski. Yeah. Something like that.
That's where Donald Glover got to start.
Yeah, he's in a lot of like people. He's in there. There's early on in like the first season. I don't know if anybody saw Royal Pains. It's like a medical procedural show, but it takes place in the Hamptons with all the rich people. But the assistant doctor on that show, she is like plays an intern on one of the episodes. She's like a small bit part. But yeah, Donald Glover's in there a lot, a couple times. I found the soundtrack of it is on Spotify for 30 Rock, and it got me listening to Werewolf Bar Mitzvah, the like Halloween / bar mitzvah fake song that they make, and apparently not only is Donald Glover in that song, he's like playing this like straight character to Tracy Morgan's character who doesn't want to finish doing the song, but apparently it might have been The Onion who got this interview. Apparently Donald Glover did dubs for Tracy Morgan on that song, so you can listen to it and go, is that Tracy Morgan, or is that Donald Glover doing his Tracy Morgan impression?
That's funny.
It's really good, and this was all before the Childish Gambino stuff, but before Community mostly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also it's like this 3-minute song that they made for this 8-second joke. But they went and shot like a big video for it and everything. It's a very funny commitment to a very small bit. So 30 Rock.
30 Rock, not to be confused with Third Rock.
Right.
True.
Man.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah.
Stewart.
Yeah, that's right. And John Lithgow and the woman who I have not seen much of.
Right.
Yeah, I should check that show out again. That was a good show. Was that a good show? We don't know. We
You
don't
just bounced from title to similar sounding title.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, that's gonna do it here for us on the Bizarre Briefing as we cross the 2-hour mark. Let's do plugs. John Ryle.
Hey,
Razzle.
at skepticallypwned.com.
That's right. At Skeptically Pwned on Twitters and stuff, on Instagram
and on
too.
the Instagram and the Twitter, and I'm gonna have to follow this guy. Where are you at?
Yeah, David. What plugs, David?
No, this is actually my own hair, and it's natural color.
Yeah.
Which is not
Finally.
actually untrue, because when I was a child, it was white.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Did you have blue eyes when you were born as well?
I did not. I had brown eyes, and now they're hazel.
Oh.
But thank you for noticing. David Rowan everywhere.
Yeah.
ROWYN.
Brandt.
Twitch.com/scatawag.
Yep. Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, other places at Gadwag, GATOWAG. Yeah.
Very
Also,
nice.
also, we're just gonna skip over my Apollo 11 talk. Apollo 11's great.
You did 20 minutes on Star Trek.
You didn't tell me I couldn't have 3 minutes on Apollo 11.
Apollo 11 is evergreen. Come on.
The edit of this podcast, if it's just like he starts on the Enterprise and then it just clearly is right to the end of it.
So maybe next time, Apollo 11.
Yeah.
Apollo 11's great.
Apollo 11. Please take a couple minutes to talk about Apollo 11.
Oh God.
Oh, it's just a documentary with no narration. It's just all footage from the Apollo 11 mission.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Great things about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had like a really emotional reaction to it as somebody who's lived, taken for granted that we landed on the moon as a thing that I just go, I've seen those 3 photos. And then just to see like all of this incredible footage, that it's kind of incredible that any of that even exists at all. And it's a really phenomenal thing.
Yeah, check it out. It might be on VOD soon because I think it's out of
Hopefully.
theaters.
Yeah, I caught the last showing.
Wow, nice. You can find me on Twitter and on Twitch. I'm Brycus, BRYCAS. I think I'm Neshcom on Instagram. I do the streaming here on twitch.tv/nightattack. And I do some of the show podcasts. So at Night Attack Show, at Scam Nation Show, and all that stuff. This show is the Bizarre Briefing. You can find more at bizarrebriefing.com. That's where you can get past episodes, show notes, all sorts of time codes and good stuff there. We also do this video version of the show at youtube.com/scamstuff. We record it live at around the end of the month at twitch.tv/nightattack. Just like we did this month. Hey, we were right on time. We were right on time.
Yeah.
No issues, nothing.
First time for everything.
In 4 years, our first time, yeah. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Bye. Catch up on old episodes.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.